and they live in McCall. And so getting there, seeing it, getting home was something that precluded being here on Tuesday. So darn it. But yeah, they were decent. Yeah. Yeah. Little wet here and there, black ice here and there. It's winter, you know. Our kids, we're skiers, and our kids all competed. Our two kids competed, and we traveled everywhere in winter, and nothing stopped my husband. So roads don't faze us too much. So I think we're ready. Yeah, Maisie, we set. Okay, so welcome to Liberated Quilting. And I'm so excited because this is definitely my own personal liberation. As I've mentioned before, I have a Gamma longarm, and I love it. It's old. It's a 93, and it has no bells and whistles at all. And I love the manual control of it. It's been just solid, wonderful. Well, not everybody has a longarm, and so constantly through the other classes that I've done here, people are saying, yeah, but how do we get it quilted and not have to pay an arm and a leg? And so a couple of things I want to talk about today are, one, getting a quilt quilted can be paying someone else to do it. You can also rent a longarm and do it yourself. It's still a part involved in that. But learning how to use a longarm is a pretty nice thing. It goes a lot faster. If you don't have either of those options or just don't want to stick with your home machine, that is something that, other than a straight in the ditch or just a diamond shape on a pot holder, is all I've ever done. And so I thought, okay, find someone in the community to join me today and be the expert, or I can put the pedal to the metal and figure out how to do this. Because in this class, I hope that I am offering information about this is how you do it. This is how you get it done at home. And I am really excited because I tried it. I watched those and I tried it, and it is not awful. And listening to videos, so I have a couple of tips in how to teach yourself, how to figure this out. And a few things I've learned from long arming, and a few things I just have learned this week, in this last week or two, in learning how. So the first thing is the design. So you have to figure that out. Simply, you may not figure out what design you're going to use. I'm going to tell you something that happens to me, and that is that when I look at a quilt, I might get some ideas going in my head about, oh, I wonder if this would look good on it, or this would look good on it. And designs will roll around. It may sound really peculiar, but I get a quilt loaded on my Gamma, and I go start on the button, and I don't always know what I'm going to do until that machine goes rumble, rumble. And then I just do it. So it's very definitely some of the information I shared before to make quilting really yours, to really enjoy it, to really feel like you're in a set of rules that make you feel less of yourself, but rather an enrichment and an empowerment. Let it speak to you. Let the quilt design speak to you. To have some receptors first, so you need to familiarize yourself with designs. So first you do have to play with designs. You have to think about, is it going to be curvilinear? Is it going to be straight? Is it going to be angular? Is it going to have a shape and form to it, or free motion? How big is it going to be? How much space quilting? And so those things do make a difference. But truly, when I had people come to me when I was doing it for hire, and they'd say, well, what quilt design do you think I should have? This and this and this. Put on a pair of roller skates, roll by from the street, and see if you notice. It isn't, quilting isn't, it does make the quilt. If you're at a quilt, you're up close and personal. Whoa, knock your socks off with the best quilting designs. Absolutely blown away. From a distance, on your bed, walking by in the hallway, it just isn't going to be the part that holds it unless you have black thread on white fabric or the opposite. So even the type of thread, yes, it shows up. Yes, it gives an artistic difference. Very much worth it if it fills your soul. If it doesn't fill your soul and you're just getting it quilted because you love the piecework you just did, then just get it quilted. Call it good. So that's, and quilting is, I tried a bunch of fun stuff. And I think now if I had a piece, say this size, I would not put it on my 14-foot machine. Whereas I always have. I've put pot holders on my quilt machine. I love it so much, and it's so familiar to me. I just could never even think, oh my gosh, I could probably get this done on my tabletop machine. No, I didn't think I could. But I'm really excited. It was lots of fun to do. So I really want to encourage you to play. I want to encourage you to look online, Pinterest, Google different quilt design companies, and really look at the designs and play with them. Now, on a long arm, you have a pantograph. I don't know if it still is. Now it's probably computerized. But for me, it was a rolled out piece of paper that had a repetitive design that went from edge to edge. And that design, like say it's a, well, this isn't going to work nicely. Of course. Murphy's Law, right? Here. There. Okay, let's just say so right then I didn't know what I was going to do until my marker hit the thing. And then come around there and come around. And now we'll go up here. So this is the design I've sort of come up with. Now, if you had this pre-printed on a piece of paper that rolled out on your long arm, then that's the pantograph. It starts on one end and you continue it across. You may or may be able to get it started on this spot and end it on that spot so your leaves are equal. It may end right in the middle of spiral or something like that. And that's a downside. Computerization has allowed quilters, though, to measure and actually program it in so that it'll fit. So nowadays, there's all kinds of things that make it work better. But if I like this combination of leaves and spirals, how about if I do this? And just play with it and fill it in. So get yourself an expo marker, a wipe-off marker, and a actually wipe-off board, and just play. Just play with continuing and not making, like right then, at any one of these spots, I was going, oh, where am I going to go? Just go. You can always end it, come back, and join, say, right here, and start again if you have to fill in a space. That's okay. So you can have any number of designs in your head just from sending, take photographs of them. Then another thing you can do, if you're going, I don't think I can replicate that. Okay, don't. Get yourself, buy the roll at Ace Hardware. You can buy clear plastic, not plexiglass, but that would work too. But just a vinyl, like a 10 millimeter vinyl or something, and you can buy it on the roll. It's used, I think, for like covering up your windows and stuff like that. And buy a half yard or something, and then print off the design that you're liking, and make 4 or 5 copies of it, and kind of hook it together on a flat surface, and then put the visqueen over the vinyl over it, and draw with a wipe off marker. Just draw that design over and over and over and over, and get your motor memory involved in the rhythm. And then figure out, do you like to listen to music while you're doing it? Do you listen to slow music? Do you listen to bebop? Do you listen to jazz? What is it that also helps you not pay a lot of attention and divide your brain power? Music. So not music you want to sing along to probably, but music that's comforting and gives your brain this rhythm that's kind of subliminal. And then when you're doing it, you want to watch that you don't do. I'll make a sound that will be that won't be going. So you don't want to be doing, like, if you're stippling, because anytime you go fast, your stitches get stretched out. Anytime you slow down, your stitches get compressed, and you have the potential for, if you're doing a smooth, you have the potential to even come to a stop and then have a point or something like that. So let me just go back over these ideas. So you want to print off designs to educate your brain about what even design can I think about. You want to make about 4 or 5, 6 copies, tape them together, and on a flat surface, put a visqueen over it, and just take a marker like this, wipe off marker, and follow the design that's already printed. Then take the design away and see what happens just on your own after you've given your brain that message. So you're teaching yourself what to think about next. Next, I'm going to have a leaf. Oh, how to get a leaf in there. Okay, we'll spiral again. If you're doing a free motion line, it does not have to be leaf, spiral, leaf, spiral, leaf up, spiral down, leaf down, spiral up. You have to put that pattern in rigidity for yourself. If it's free motion, just have your brain thinking leaves go point, spirals keep going, leaves go point, keep going. And if you can even get a chant in your head that kind of teaches your brain to anticipate the next thing. I love spirals on my gammal. They're not as easy on a table machine, but I love spirals. You go big circle, you come in smaller, stop. Right here isn't the same space as right here. That's okay. From that stop, you come back around, and you might keep going because you can't figure out how to go in that direction, or maybe you need to come down here, and then you come and you might do a smaller one. And you can even point and outline. You don't have to always do the smooth curve to a spiral. So you can change it up a little bit because your brain goes, oh, stop, go, change directions. And so all of that is a spiral. I love spirals. My very favorite on the gammal is pantograph. It goes 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you're sewing, these outside edges are long. These inside ones are little tight circles. So technically you want to go faster, not super fast, but faster on the small ones. Slow it down even more. So you might give yourself a count. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 2. I went too fast. 3. So you want to give yourself something for your brain and your muscles and your pen to all get in sync. Like sewing, for me, is an extremely sensory engaging experience. It is not just mental, it is not just skill. So that variegated shell is a really fun one. It's not as easy on this, but it wasn't bad. I liked it. And stippling probably going to be, it's what a lot of other people recommend to start. But as I told you once a long time back when we were in quilt designs, log cabin is often recommended as a beginner block. No, don't do log cabin your first quilt, because as you move out into that bigger frame of the center blocks, if your seam allowance is off at all, it gets either expanded and almost becomes round, or it gets shrinky and it becomes kind of concave, depending on whether you're a hair under or a hair over. So it's something for well-practiced quarter seam sewers to do. 2-strip blocks are great. Rail fence 2-strip or 3-strip. Oh, they're wonderful. Great starters. And they make great pot holders, which I'm going to demonstrate. So stippling is usually recommended to start. And so I did. I started with that. And so stippling is a puzzle. It's also called puzzle. And you want to think about making kind of a bulbous thing, not a straight loop, although that's something. And then you can go like this. And then you can go like this. And just like I got kind of goofy there, yeah, okay, probably not going to show. And that's okay. Or practicing and see what else, see how much better you can get. Look at it afterwards and go, okay, so here I started. That was the problem child over here. What happened? Let's see. Oh, okay, that went up, and maybe I just need to remember to curl back to the other lobe. So what I mean is you start, you make a lobe, you come up, you come back to that lobe, and you come back, and you come back again, and you come back again. And one of the tricks to stippling is to spread yourself out and come back in, and spread yourself out and come back in. There's a tendency in stippling to stay tight here and fill in, and then move yourself out. And so you see how regimented it becomes. It just kind of goes around there and goes. And as you get further and further out, it has sort of a row look. So if you're stippling, you want to start, make a lobe, come in, come back, come out, come over, come out, come in. I also sometimes think about with stippling, see how I made a point there? Oh, well, now I'll make a point. No. Sorry, couldn't avoid that. That happens in stippling. It just is, it's just a little synapse problem in my brain anyway. Sometimes I think about north, east, west, south, but I just try, I don't like keep it in the same order necessarily, but I just try to make sure I'm getting all 4 of them in. So I think, okay, I'm going to go north, I'm going to go east, south, west, I'm going to go north, west, east. Now I'm coming into this, sorry. confusing. East, south, west, north, west, south, east. I might do a couple of souths. That's okay. So what you want to do is be sure you're getting the variation in direction. There's a tendency to go, oh, okay, that's a nice round lobe. Oh, okay. And then you have more like a knitted row. Design in your head is really important. Now, I think I'm pretty expert at, in all the years I've had machine since 93, my long arm, and I certainly have done a lot of stippling. And so when I sat down to do this, I wasn't unfamiliar with stippling or how to get it to be even, that kind of thing. So what I did, and this is not white thread, I'm sorry, but what you see is it's kind of shaky and jerky, and I'll pass it around for you. There's spots, you can see it better on the back. There's spots that I got going and went, where am I? And then came back and sort of did a loop instead of a stipple. When you do the old roller skate test, it's just fine. And so, and actually, this is my first stippling. And so I'm going to demonstrate, and I hope give you confidence to try home. When you're looking at it, look at how some of these aren't lobes. They're kind of bumps in a row, and then they come straight back. That's okay. It's just the point of stippling is to give it random texture. And so in the randomness of it, you're not seeing the old-fashioned quilting of a grid. You're not seeing a row of stitching. You're just seeing that wonderful puckered richness. And so here's a sample I'll pass around. And then this one, I thought, okay, Suzanne, let's get some juice going here. And another design I like is loops. And I kind of try to think about the sort of a straight line, and my loops go on either side of it and alternate. So if I were doing a row, a border, I might go up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? So that might be the overall pattern of it. And you can see right there, it's not at all perfect. Sometimes fabric gives you a measuring stick, so you might have a stripe or a repeat in a print, and you can kind of aim for those. And so you can keep it printed. And same with spirals, like if you're doing a spiral row in a border and you're going one after the other, and you get to the end of your border and you're like, oh, I don't have enough room for a whole spiral. Look ahead. One, you can mark. So that's another thing you can do to help your pace, is you can do a grid on a big area and just kind of focus on filling in this area of the grid. Try to cross over the line so they dovetail. They don't just have this line division. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm saying is, if I had a big piece of fabric bigger than this, and I was stippling, and I was going right to that line that I marked with a chalk pen, then when I went back and now went for this one and erased that chalk mark, I'm not doing a great job here, but you can see how you have to get, whoops, and I go like that. When I erased this line, it really didn't have any crossover. You'd kind of see that ridge of being left unquilted. If I try to cross over a little bit, but it just gives me a guide, to get a section filled and not miss any spots. And then I might come here and cross the line that way. So now they've dovetailed a little bit. Does that make sense? So stippling. Loops. Oh, I was starting to show you. So loop free motion, you go up and you think of this, even though this is now moving up, this is like that straight line. So now I'm going to go up here and my loop's going to go on the other side. Then it's going to go here and it's going to go here. So I'm kind of rolling. If you look at this line that connects them, you have one on the right side, one on the left side, one on the right side, one on the left side. So it does alternate, but by the time you've moved that line up or down, right and left has very little meaning. So up and down, right and left. And guess what? If I go here on the right, and now I'm going to go on the left, and then I'm going on the right, oh, I'll go on the right again. That's okay. So you can do, it's not that, again, the rigidity of it is not important. It's about texture and the randomness of filling that area. When I do loops, I kind of try to keep my loops somewhat uniform. So I think about coins and I think a quarter size or a size or a $50 size if I'm just doing a real open coin. And that kind of sticks in my mind pretty well. You may have something else, maybe a bug that give a reference point for how large something is. Okay, did you guys see this? Okay. Now, this is one I tried to get a little creativity going. And so I started down here and I did my loops up and down, all the way over to here. Then I tried my variegated shell and came around 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so, and then I got here and I just started wiggling my line all the way up and then all the way down. They're not perfectly parallel right here. They come together closer. Other spots, they come together closer, farther. But they overall have channels and they fill in a section. So if you're quilting an area that has a block that asks for a background effect, densely quilting an area in something like this is a really nice possibility. And then here I tried a spiral and it went okay. And again, this is my first try. This is not, I'm really quite satisfied. Now comes the test because now I'm going to try and show you. This is quilted, and if you look on the back, you see it much better. But this is quilted by my friend Jackie Reimer. And Jackie is quite experienced in machine quilting on her tabletop. And so you'll see stippling and her loops are pretty nice. They're really very even. And she took this point of the log cabin that comes out on a diamond framing photo, which is actually a photo of a greeting card, a Halloween greeting card that is really sweet. So on the back, you can see how she's used loops, bigger loop at the point, smaller, smaller, smaller still to the corner, and then smaller, larger, larger, larger to the point. So that takes some motor control that I don't have. Now I can do that on my camel, no sweat. That's not a problem at all. But on this little baby, I do a lot more practice. But I like how she used the same design to fill in these. It's actually these dark triangles of the log cabin, and so She has that same longer loop and then going out to the tiny loop on the edges. So that's kind of fun. So if you practice with leftover blocks that you have, that also will give you kind of a framework to think about, oh, I only want this design to go in this space. Or what it feels like to do an all over design and cross right over a star point and right over a, an intersection of fabric. When I'm doing over designs, I think structurally it's important to try to cross seams because you are making your quilt stronger. It's also same issue. It's also really nice if you can cross intersections because intersections are a weak spot. The fabric picks up higher with the folds underneath it. And so wherever you have intersections of two seams, it's nice if you can fit a quilting stitch or two across that. If you can't, oh well, get close and the best of it. You obviously on something this tiny, you can't hit every seam and intersection. So somewhere along the line. But if you can anchor down every piece of fabric, even a tiny bit, that's just going to be a stronger quilt. So a couple of strategic tips. So how do we do this? I have a piece of paper here. It's just newsprint. Nowadays you may not even have a newsprint to use, but this is newsprint that's on a roll. You could use freezer paper, some of the wider rolls of freezer paper or something. I suggest laying down something around a place you're going to use spray adhesive. You want to use a spray adhesive that's water soluble so it washes out. That also is nice if you do have any overspray and it hits your surface, your table, your mat, whatever you're on, any rulers in the nearby area. And of course, you want to use this in a ventilated area and all that. Overspray is in the air and we don't want to be breathing tons. So this is ODIF 505, and that's available here at Confidence Stitch. You can get some other brands and whatnot at any of the fabric stores, but check and see that it is water soluble. So there's also, before I do that, there's also a couple other ways that you can baste your pieces together. You want to secure your backing fabric, your batting, and your top piece in a way that's going to slide and pull and tug. And so you don't get pleats, and especially because you can't keep a real close eye on the underneath side. So there's 3 methods that you can use. Spray based easiest. You can use, I have, yep, right here. You can use these, basting pins, and they are bent safety pins. So they go like this. And the reason they're bent is because you're going to have your back fabric, your batting. Get these sort of matched up a little bit. And you don't need to make sure that there's perfect alignment, but you do need to make sure that your batting covers all your fabric. Okay, and then your top. And now I'm going to want to make sure my top goes, I don't have my other hand here. Do this better. Okay, here's my corner of the back. And down here, so if I'm doing a pot holder, this is about the size. And the reason these pins are bent is because this outside edge is bent, and it's so that you can go down and hardly tilt it and it pokes right up. So you don't have to use the bent ones. They are more expensive, but they're lots easier. And I don't know about you guys, but my hands as I'm getting older are not as friendly. And when I'm doing some repetitive motion, I'll get some stuff. if you're doing something that you're going to quilt right away, you really don't even have to close up the pins because that bend kind of holds them in place. You're going to put your pins, if you're going to use pins, you're going to put them in a sort of random positioning with about a hand in between. And so that's that one. And if you're pushing down on a surface, not your lovely dining room table, but something that you can actually scrape the tip of the pen on, you don't even have to get your hand underneath there. Just by kind of scraping the floor or whatever surface you're using, maybe your cutting mat, you can get it to head upward, and you'll just get in place. So you can use these pins, like I said, you want about a hand width apart. And so if you can see that if you're going to do a queen size quilt, you're going to be putting a lot of pins in. And so that's something hands don't like. If you want to take some long pieces of thread and do a basting stitch, that's also a possibility. I do find for myself when I've done basting stitch that over a bigger quilt, a basting stitch is kind of hard to keep from pulling in a little bit. And so it kind of gathers up. And so you just take a stitch under and you stretch it out, again, about a hand width, so about the same distance as you're pinning, and you just another little stitch and you move it along. You have that thread in between, and so that thread in between you want to make sure it's loose and not pulling. I find that difficult to do. That's not my favorite method, but it's a lovely old style method. This is, and I'll try and keep this over here for you guys. You can keep it pretty directional. So if you have this overspray piece down, I'm all caught up here. You just give it a quick, like that. It doesn't have to be everywhere. And then you're gonna fold your batting so that you're not going to get it sticking everywhere, and centering it, and then rolling it out and giving it a little flap. And then likewise, sorry, I hope I'm not in the front row there, and laying this down, got those corners, and we're going to come up, lay it gently. So you can spray onto batting, you can spray onto fabric, you can flip it over and spray onto fabric only if that seems like the easiest way to do it. So you just have that. Now you can, we're just practicing, but you can go and trim this all up if you want, so you know for sure all your layers are getting caught. But for practice purposes, I don't need to do that. I wanted to bring this because on this sheet, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera or even in the audience, there's a little spot here that hit. So I did have a little overspray, but not much if you just do little quick spurts. So, and aren't too far away. The further away you are, of course, the bigger the spray area. It's just like COVID. And here they have the two sizes, which is nice, efficiency. And let me just pass this around so you can feel it. They're not immobile. You can kind of shift them still. And if you look at it and go, oh, crumb, there's a big wrinkle in the middle there. Or you have a fold of the fabric that you didn't notice, and now it shows up. You can peel it off, and you won't be able to iron it now, but you can peel it off and at least really try and spread that out a little bit more, or use another piece. Okay, now every machine should have instructions for using a darning foot. Now we've talked about the walking foot, and this is my walking. Some machines have them built in, and that's what you use almost all the time. This is my walking foot. A walking foot is for quilting where you're moving in one continuous direction for a fair amount of distance, where the pressure of pushing forward is potentially going to stretch the top from the bottom. So the walking foot keeps equal pressure on the top and the feed dogs from the bottom. The walking foot is not what you use for free motion. The free motion foot is the darn foot, the old-fashioned darning foot. And so it has a spring. It often has some little something poking out the other way, that you want to check your instructions to make sure you have it on properly. On mine, this little spring pokey thing has to be sure to be over the a part of the foot, a part of the bar. And so you want to make sure you're doing all that in the way the instructions say. If your has adjustments in tension or in stitching or something like that for free motion, that's what you're looking for, either darning or free motion, depending on how old your machine is. And then you want to follow what the machine says to do. Several of the videos I looked at indicated using a tension, adjusting your tension to a higher number. And so it's only the top tension and not adjusting your bobbin at all, just having that be its usual. You're not loosening it or anything. It's just its usual. My machine says to leave the tension on auto, and then there's a very specific stitch program that I put in. So I'm going to give it a shot. I hope I've done it right.
So if you do adjust it, you adjust it tighter?
Yes, to a higher number, like even 8 and 9 was what Missouri Star recommended. Okay, so this goes on, and that little thingy goes above. Yep, we're in place. Want to make sure your foot's on nice and tight. When you're quilting, I'd strongly recommend you put on a new needle, and I did just do that, so I'm not gonna. And then my machine has an extra little screwdriver slot there for getting it nice and tight. I don't need to reference it, and yes, it will go down. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so we have open. I think we're good. All right. Okay. And get this out of the way. So you want your feed dogs down. Now, a lot of machines have a lever that just goes up or down. It's just a 2 lever in the back that's directly connected to your feed dog. Mine is here, and so they're down. And I don't know if on the machine, on the camera, you can see that, but when they're down, they drop below the plate. And so they're now not controlling the movement of your fabric. So the only thing controlling your fabric movement is your hands. And I'm actually really nervous. So, because I was so successful, I'm like, oh, what if this sucks? Okay. Let me see. What do I want? Oh, and your done foot, you will lower the foot, but you'll still have freedom. It won't like put pressure. It should not be putting pressure on your fabric. A lot of machines that are computerized, if you don't lower the foot, it'll beep at you or it won't operate, and that's because it's not getting the cue that it's ready. So you want to put your foot down. You want to check that you can move your machine okay. Some videos I read recommend starting in the middle and trying to work your way out to the edges. Others will like start at the edge and go across. A lot of it, I think, would depend. I mean, I haven't done a big piece. I'm not sure I would since I have a gammal, but I think it would depend on how secure you're feeling about your basting. So if you think your basting is pretty solid and you got nice equal pressure on your top and bottom fabric with your basting technique, I think you can start anywhere. But every once in a while, you want to lift it up and double check that you've got, no wrinkles and nothing's looking like it's getting poofy underneath. Needle down position is also a really nice feature to have. If you don't have that feature to set it in needle down, then you'll want to remember that when you stop, put your needle down. So when you stop, put your needle in so it stays positioned to get going on the same place you left off. If you don't do that, you'll have a little trick trying to line it up, but it's not a disaster. Okay, so I'm going to pull my thread up, all of it here, and I haven't quite figured this out, but I think, okay, I'm going to put my down. I'm going to hold on to those little threads to keep nice tension, and my machine beeps, and then you go. And here we are. Now see how I'm like turning my fabric? Come in close if you want, but see how I've got some squared off spots there? Now I can move my fabric. I change my stitch length. I can change. So you're going to have to determine that too for your movement pace.
You find it easier to set your speed so you never go faster than a certain speed, or do you just
I accidentally set it at like half speed when I tried it. Then I realized, oh, I wonder what would happen. And when I turned it on full speed, I actually like that better. So look at how I can move. I'm putting on the gas. Some people like and you can see here that I got kind of weird there. So, I mean, it takes practice. There's no doubt about it. But you kind of have to have a pace in your head. And there she is. So you can see this row that I kind of got into. Not optimal. It's not awful, but it's not optimal. And on the back, you want to check your back tension and make sure that's looking good too. So let's try my 3-point thing. Pull my threads up. Okay, I guess I'm there. Needle, my presser foot's down. It kind of, you need some getting used to on that one because it's like, oh, my presser foot's not down. Everything's moving. Here we go. We go 1, go slower, 2, not slower in foot pedal, slower in motion with your hand. Go 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. So these are pretty, I mean, compared to what I do on the long arm, these are pretty tiny little scallops. When I do the scallops on the long arm, they're probably where the inner circle is at least a quarter size, if not even like dollar size or so.
And you try to keep the scallops the same size? I Like I would
I
tend- do you
do,
tend to get
but
bigger as you're going out?
you do, and you know that's okay. Just beware, and then when you then start bringing it back down. And so if all over your quilt it moves in size, then again there's a random about that. Okay, so I haven't done this, but I'm going to try doing it bigger. I heard something do a weird thing underneath. Oops, small again. And it takes some getting used to learn that you don't just have to go back and forth in this. You can do spin pivot, you can maneuver it in lots of different ways. So here's making the scallop larger. Now on the back, didn't do any bad stuff. I don't know what the noise was. Might just be that my machine needs cleaning. Sorry. And so that's that. So honestly, it's about doing it. It's about going home and playing and not expecting that the first time you jump into it, it's supposed to look perfect, but rather that it's, I don't know if you know any scouts who did knots, but knots are hard to make them look pretty and to get them secure and to really do them right. And so, or macrame, it's knots, yeah. But if you did a macrame back and forth band, those of you who've ever tried macrame, aging myself. Um, they if you get sloppy, you get a big lump over on one side, or if you tight, it starts to narrow down. And so when you're doing one strand and you're just doing the macrame knot all down a strand, it takes practice. And knitting is like that. Crocheting is like that. Anywhere where you get a rhythm and your brain anticipates, and that's what you're doing. Not trying to think about I'm right here with my needle going in my fabric in this spot, but rather, and now I want to head over there. Now I want to get down here. And so you're giving your brain a cue to angle somewhere. So any questions or thoughts? Anyone want to give it a try even? Yeah.
Okay, so I have a quilt that's, the piecing is flannel, I'm putting wool batting in it, and I'm putting fleece backing on it.
Woo, that's a heavy quilt.
I want what's going in our camper.
Nice.
We may be living in our fifth wheel for a year, so it's gotta be warm.
Yeah, it's gotta be warm.
Any suggestions on how to minimize my stretching?
Yes. So fleece has a stretch in only one direction, for one. So if you, I would spray base because that should hold it in place. And I would put my fleece down first and then set the batting on top of that after you spray base fleece. Or you can set your batting down, fold back a section, spray where you fold back, and then fold it back. Don't take the tip and like go like this or you'll have an air pocket. You want to roll it out. But not tension.
Barely.
Yeah, just padding, not in any way that you're pulling and tugging.
What if I'm going to do it on a long arm?
Now on a long arm, the trick is that you put your, Maisie, if you could help me, I think the selvage edges are where it doesn't stretch, and then it stretches from selvage to selvage. So if you pin it so your selvage edges are running perpendicular to the roller, that then keeps the roller pulling along and not stretching. If you pin it the other way as you take your roller turns or as you move your quilt, whichever kind of quilt machine you have, you might have some tension inadvertently and stretching that pulley. Yeah. So selvage edges perpendicular to the bar or roller or whatever in your machine you're using. And then when you pin it on the gamel, you pin it onto a leader that actually rolls up. On the handy quilters and things like that, they have like a clip.
I'm going to do the classes at
nice.
the Sewing Center and probably take it there. Or I might just spray base it and do it on my tabletop.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
I'm brave enough yet.
I think there are a couple different kinds of Bernina. One of them is a tabletop kind of. It's got a great big throat, and it might even turn so it faces you.
And now you can rent them.
Okay. So I'm not sure if a tabletop quilting machine allows you that directionality for the stretch. So I'm not sure. I'd have to check with the manufacturer to see what they recommend.
I haven't done it yet. It's been ready for a month because I know there's going to be so much stretch in all of it. Except for maybe adding.
Yeah.
And I may do wool and cotton, so really make it warm.
Yeah. Oofta. Nice. Nice. That's exciting. Any other questions? I was gonna kind of put together a pot holder because pot holders are my favorite way to use leftovers and to practice. And so I have this little 2-band strip here, and I'm just gonna come over here, and I'm really hoping I have a long enough piece to make this work. So when you're doing a 2-rail fence, you measure your actual 2 pieces sewn together, and it's 4.5 here. So then that means I'm gonna make a 4.5-inch cut so that I have squares. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4. Yay! I did it. I even had leftover. So on a simple 2-rail fence, kinda Christmas, kinda. Oops, gotta have the right side up. And this is sort of the plus look. And I just change stitch these. And I honestly grabbed these strips as I was leaving the house. Oh, I should do a sample of some. Oh, I can't sew with that. That won't work. Yikes. And I have to get my screwdriver back out. Where is that? You know, one of the things I am not real happy with on the Janome is that this big head comes out over the foot, and it makes it kind of hard to see in here and to get my cranky hands in there. So, yeah. It is. So I'm not so thrilled with that, but I guess you just can't have it all.
But they don't have the right people.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay. Oops. This here, there, and feed dogs up. There, that'll work. Okay. Now, so I these strips, and they were pinked, pinking edges, the zigzag cut, and and I thought, oh no, I hope that doesn't make them like a 1/4 inch too big or whatever. think we're good. So I just did chain stitching of these two pieces. Now I'm going to fold those together just so it's not a mystery. I'm sure those of you who've done some quilting can see what I'm doing. And I'm lining up that center seam right here so I get a nice nesting to fit them in. And all that is something that if you're not familiar with all those terms, check the videos from before. I love a 2-rail fence because hardly any seams to match. Everything goes from a seamed to a straight cut, and it's a really easy pattern to use. Thread cutters, and voila, we've got a nice little pot holder. Now pot holders, technically, I'm just going to finger press this. Did it? Okay. Not the best choice of a back, but that got. So we got a back, we got a sandwich, turkey sandwich, little. One of the videos I watched promised that the water soluble spray, that if you do this and you have some overspray, that it will simply wear out within a day or something like that. And ooh, this may not be big enough. Nope, it's not. Look a little smaller. My sample cuts were a little skimpy there. Okay. Well, it's just going to have to, you should not do this, so don't do as I do. Do as I. Oh, heck yeah. Oh, thank you, Maisie. Wonderful, Maisie. There. And I've already sprayed that, so now I'll just do this so it doesn't get on anything. And that actually has a little spray, but because, oh, sorry. I think I got that pointed. Hope I didn't get you. Okay, now I'm looking at the corner. Oh, thank you. Whew, whew. It's a good thing I have helpers here. Man, I'd be a mess. Okay. You know, yes, thank you for saying that. I use cotton. 80-20 actually is okay. I wouldn't put it in the microwave. It should be 100% cotton if you're actually going to put it in the microwave. But the 80-20 is okay. Usually with a pot holder, I do either 2 layers of 80-20 or I do a layer of the foil reflective, I can't, thermal, what, Insul Bright. And I also like a thicker pot holder, even though Insul Bright probably won't burn me. It feels too thin, and so. Oh, does it? I didn't know that. Okay, but I do like that better. Yes. So the Insul Bright plus batting, yeah, is usually what I use. But we're just going to do this, and that way it'll be like a trivet. So we're good. So now let's say, now I got to go back to my other stuff. So this is where if you wanted to use your walking foot, or if your regular foot was sufficient, I would start, that's what I have done in the past. I would start in the center and I would either stitch in the ditch, just follow with my regular foot and a bigger stitch. I'd let the feed dog pull, and so I wouldn't be guiding it in any way. Or I might go from the center to this corner and just do a diagonal So then it anchors all the fabric. And that is probably the simplest to do for a pot holder. But now that I'm so expensive, now I could do something like this, and I could either choose to do an all over, or because my back will show that design, I could choose to just fill in the red fabric or the green fabric, or use a different stitch in the two. So I've got lots of options. And I think, how are we on time? 1:30. Good. Okay. I'm not sure that I can finish 20 minutes. But I haven't shown how to just do like a simple quilting, so I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put my stitch on, for my machine, I do a 3 length. I'm going to start in the middle, right there. And I'm just going to aim out to this corner. I'm not doing any control of tension. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot. And come back here. I'm going to overlay this just a little to secure the stitches. It pushes when you, especially on a diagonal, because you're pushing on a this. So it does tend to push. And if it's just a straight line, there is some push, and that's where using your walking foot could be the thing that does the trick. If I were free motion quilting, you could start in the center and just move your way out all the way around. If I wanted to start on an edge and do the free motion, it doesn't have the pressure, for one, and two, you're moving all the time. You're not just pushing straight across that diagonal. Okay. Oops. Foot down, cut thread. There we go. And then come back here to the center. Oops, I got a little off there. And back to the center. And I just eyeball to the corner. I get my head down and look for getting that tip of the pot holder to the line of the thread. And that's good enough. But if I'm not happy with that, I could now go around and do, let's see what I want to do. We'll go here, and we'll go down to my stitching, which should be in the middle. And we'll go across and go down to my stitching. And voila, you got scraps that you've used up. You've got pot holders for somebody's Christmas stocking, and you're ready to roll. And on the back, you have that. So I trim this and then just bind. There is the option of doing pillowcase style, but you can't use the basting spray because you're flipping it inside out and sewing and all that. So if you had right sides together and stitched all the way around, leaving a little hole to open it up, flipped it around, top stitch that section closed, you could just do your quilting and be done. I think they look a lot better when they're bound though. So So this can be bound, and there it is. All right. So I wish you happy sewing and quilting and free motion yourselves silly. Yeah, just enjoy it. You know, I really do hear people going, "Oh, I've tried it and it's so hard." It's not gonna. I mean, this is while I mean this is a novice machine quilter, and I can see how kind of shaky it is. All said and done, it once it's washed, well, it's hardly going to show at all if it shows. So I really welcome everybody to just give it a shot. Put a couple of sample swatches of adding and scraps of fabric at your machine just over on the side, and then while you're sewing a project before you close for the day, section even, you don't even have to fill a whole thing in, but just get yourself to practice like a musical instrument or anything else. You build it in, and think about rhythm, think about what you like, what you've seen on quilts. You may very well start paying a lot more attention to the quilting. I know when I go to quilt, I see friends, I'm like, oh, did you see that quilt that? And I'll describe all the quilting, and I'll go, no. And then they'll tell me, did you see the quilt that? And they'll describe the piecing, and it might even be the same quilt. So enjoy. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Have a nice holiday winter break. I will.